since we learned about that summit being canceled. Right now, top Justice Department and FBI officials are briefing lawmakers on classified information regarding the role of a federal informant who interacted with members of the Trump presidential campaign before the 2016 election. This is the first meeting of two meetings that are planned to happen today. House Speaker Paul Ryan and GOP Chairman Devin Nunes and Trey Gowdy are currently inside that meeting. The ranking Democrat on the House Intel Committee, Adam Schiff, is also there. Remember, Democrats had complained that they were not invited to the party. Adam Schiff is, in fact, there. Later today, the same justice officials will brief the bipartisan group of lawmakers known as the Gang of Eight. Chairman Gowdy will sit in for Speaker Ryan, who is unable to attend that meeting. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly will also be at both meetings. House Intel Committee ranking Democrat I just mentioned, Schiff, weighed in a short time ago. Watch.
There should be only one meeting. It should be the Gang of Eight. There shouldn't be a pre-meeting with two GOP members who have effectively acted as Donald Trump's legal defense team in Congress. I was assured that Kelly would only be there to convene the meeting and then would leave the room. There should be no one present from the White House. In fact, we shouldn't even have the White House convening this meeting. It just shows really how improperly motivated the whole meeting is.
Capri, is your Democrat Party in risk of sounding sour grapes at this point?
I think when folks like Adam Schiff put it in such a way that, for example, Trey Gowdy is part of, Trump's legal defense team, when you get cutesy like that, you lose credibility. I mean, I think that there are some legitimate issues here. I think that it would have been better if there was just one bipartisan meeting that was convened, so you take the optics of partisanship out of this. I think that same thing as far as, the White House being involved, because you're dealing with intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies, having the presence of the White House there, even though they were the ones that wanted it, does raise, again, optics questions, if nothing else. But again, you lose the ability to make that argument when you get too cute by half, like Adam Schiff did. And I think that we need to be careful on how we approach these things.
Well, and Ari, isn't the bottom line somebody may have infiltrated in some way without saying exactly who they were in a presidential campaign in the United States of America?
Well, let me begin. I think there's a bottomer line. And the
bottomer line. I like that.
The bottomer line is Russia interfered with our election, and we know that the DNC and John Podesta's emails were hacked. And if any American cooperated in that should be investigated. And I've said before, I'll say it again, an attack on one party is an attack on all parties. So I'm all for this investigation because we should get to the bottom of what Russia did. But to do that, sometimes you use in a criminal investigation informants. The issue here that makes it so extraordinary is when you put informants into the opposing presidential campaign, and you are the Obama administration deciding we will authorize the FBI to put informants into the Trump campaign. Why and when did you do it? And we don't know the answers to that. We have not yet heard, and that's why it's so important for us to get these documents and for both parties to see them, to know. The decision made in the Trump years, in the Obama years, to take this step has put themselves at risk. It is fraught with risk when you put informants into an opposing political campaign because we don't want to set precedents. That's how we conduct justice and elections.
And you're criminalizing politics in this country.
So it gets really cloudy at that point, because you may have done it for the purposes of finding out if another country was working.
Correct.
Right. You may have done it that. But we are in the land where everything is seen through those rosy glasses called politics.
Well, and I don't buy that, we still need to see a lot more information about why this informant spy was working to gather information from the Trump campaign and giving it to the FBI and the Justice Department. James Clapper says it was on behalf of the Trump campaign to make sure that Russians weren't infiltrating. But we knew. The Obama administration knew for years prior to the 2016 presidential election that the Russians had planned to interfere. We had seen their work in Europe in elections. This was not something new that happened just after Donald Trump won the primary and was going up against Hillary Clinton. So there are questions there. But in the last 24 hours, things with this meeting have changed completely. Yesterday, nobody from the White House, nobody from the White House was going yesterday. Democrats weren't going yesterday. Now it's a bipartisan meeting where John Kelly is going to be there. It's a well-rounded meeting.
The second one.
Right, the second meeting. So the question, the question about why the White House is there, well, the president, it was his campaign, and I think they want to know what was going on because they're trying to fix the system and rid the corruption inside of the FBI.
I would, from the one counterpoint I would say to that, and this also applies to the issue of the Obama administration. The issue here is what happens if, when, and how politics injects itself into the criminal justice system, into the investigative system. So, the assumption is that because it was the Obama administration, Obama endorsed Hillary, therefore there must be some sort of nefarious reason why it's politically motivated. And then the Democrats on this flip side say, well, John Kelly wants to be in the room because he wants to run back and tell Trump. And guess what? This whole thing is classified. We're all speculating. We're going to have no idea what's in there until somebody leaks.
What we do know is Democrats initially were not invited, but then they made it very clear that they would like to be in that room. Although Sarah Sanders, remember when she was asked about this in the first briefing where they addressed this, she said, well, they didn't have any questions about this. They didn't request the information. They didn't request the information. They weren't looking for answers. So they've gotten their way. They're going to get in that room. Trey Gowdy making this very clear when talking to Dana Perino. He said, so great. I don't care who's there.
That's right.
But if Democrats are going to show up in that room, he said, I'm not in charge of the guest list. If they're going to be in the room, they better show up with an open mind and tight lips.
Can I just
is that going to happen?
Yeah. But the most important thing to me is not who's in the room, but what is the information that's brought into the room. That's what this is about.
Correct.
And here's my theory, that when the Obama administration realized that the Trump campaign may have had contacts with Russia, they had two choices. One, do we tell the Trump campaign? Do we warn Donald Trump that you may be infiltrated by Russians and you have a problem? They chose not to do that for some odd reason, maybe because they thought there's no one safe to tell. I think then they got themselves spun up into such a nefarious theory.
To tell?
Why else wouldn't they tell them? They thought Paul Manafort can't be trusted, that Carter Page can't be trusted. None of them can be trusted. We should not warn them. So if you don't if you don't warn them, then you create an environment for informants to find out what it is the Trump campaign is doing. Once they took that step, then it all started to spiral out of control, and that's why we need to know why did it begin and who authorized it. What role did Barack Obama have? Did he know that the FBI was going to put informants there? And I'll guarantee you the answer is yes. No FBI would put informants in another presidential campaign without permission from the White House, including the president.
Wow. All right, we'll move on.